We are live.
Thanks very much. And good evening and welcome to the Town of East Hampton Planning Board meeting for November 4th, 2020. We are again meeting virtually via Zoom. Again, want to thank the folks at LTV for their work in getting us on television. Everybody in the planning department, planning board staff, planning department staff. Thank you all for pitching in. We have 4 site plan reviews, 1 sub-waiver review, and a public hearing at 7 p.m. The public hearing is on the Acobonic Grove application. We will begin with the sub-waiver review for 294 Abraham's Path, LLC. David Kirst, I see you're on the link, and you're for the applicant?
Yes.
Thank you. So we will begin with Marco. Right ahead, Marco. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. So does everyone see the screen I've shared? Okay. So an application has been made to divide the original parcel of 300-149-2-31 into 2 individual lots. The original parcel of 89,708 square feet will be divided into lot 1, consisting of 40,836 square feet minus a proposed access easement, and lot 2 consisting of 44,854 square feet. The property is zoned a residence, which must maintain a minimum of 40,000 square feet. It is situated off of Abraham's Path in Amagansett, located within Suffolk County, Pine Barrens. It's also under the South Fork Special Groundwater Protection Area. So the lot is partially cleared and contains a 1 single-family residence. The existing building coverage and total lot coverage are below the permitted levels, 1.5% of permitted 10%, and 6.31% of permitted 35% respectively. The applicant has provided additional coverage calculations and additional clearing calculations that were previously omitted. As part of the proposal, the existing residence must be removed, otherwise it would be within the newly proposed setbacks. The survey recently submitted has been revised to have a formal title, and a common driveway profile has been depicted. The common driveway will be 14 feet wide with a 2-foot cleared shoulder area as required in Chapter 220, and will consist of crushed bluestone and oil. The planning department previously recommended the addition of a 50-foot scenic easement on the frontage along Abraham's Path to protect the rural community character. It was discussed that the definition of lot area in Chapter 220 requires that easements prohibiting the erection of buildings be deducted from lot area. Council has discussed the scenic easement and has concluded that this practice is applied to existing scenic easements, not proposed. Such a practice would deem minimal lot area and the proposed scenic easement as non-existent. The scenic easement would only exist as a condition of approval, and so does not subtract from the lot area before approval occurs. The applicant has agreed to the addition, and a proposed 50-foot wide scenic easement has been added to the survey. The planning board had requested that the survey depict a low nitrogen IA system, which has not been completed by the applicant. The planning department would like to add that the site appears to have sufficient room for a low nitrogen system and sufficient room to meet the Suffolk County Department of Health Services dimensional setback requirements. The board may wish to discuss if it finds the information provided sufficient. The planning department has received comments from the fire marshal indicating that the information submitted is sufficient or not relevant for further review. In conclusion, provided the planning board agrees, the application is considered complete. The board may wish to discuss waiving or scheduling a public hearing. The application is otherwise ready for approval.
Okay, thank you very much, Marco. Mr. Kirst, you there?
Yes, I am.
Go right ahead.
Hey, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you real quick though. David, is Mark Pilata or Justin Crowell on your application?
No.
Okay, these are two that are waiting to come into the Zoom. We can ask on the next application.
They may be for my partner for another application later, the Home Sweet Home.
Okay.
They're not for me for this application.
Do you at least recognize the names?
No, I don't. I'm not handling that matter at all. So.
Okay, I just trying to figure out whether to let them in. All right, sorry, go ahead.
No problem. So just the only thing to address is the ask for the labeling of a IA system on the map. I spoke to Saskis, and he says what is depicted is an IA system, and that there's a small note there that says OWTS for on-site wastewater treatment system. But he said that is not just a septic tank. That was an IA system. So that's why he didn't update that when we had the revisions made. But otherwise, I think as Marco noted, there's plenty of room for an IA system, which would both be required by the town code and probably, I think, the county at this point. So, and we're happy to give the easement. So.
Very good. All right, anything else? Mr. Kirst, anything else?
No, if the board would be so kind as to waive public hearing, we'd love that. Other than that, I rest my case.
Very, very well. Thank you. Okay, Lou, it's yours.
Yeah, not much to be said here. I'm glad we cleared up the easement issue. As far as the IA system, I don't, unless somebody else can think of a problem with it, my concern is that when a septic system is installed, it's the new IA system, and I believe that is mandatory. So whether or not it's properly designated on the site plan, I don't think that makes any difference, but I could be wrong. And the only other issue is the public hearing. Again, here's something that I don't really think it's, although I'm always, like to err on the side of having a public hearing. I don't want to neglect the public from voicing their views. I just don't think this particular project affects anyone to the point where they would voice any adversarial viewpoints to it. So I could go either way with the public hearing. So other than that, I think the application is complete, ready for either a public hearing or just without.
Okay. I guess since we only have those two issues, we can go around the table quickly and see how folks feel about a public hearing. We'll start on my right this time, Sharon.
Yeah. Hi. No, I think like Lou said, the only outstanding issue is really the public hearing. I think they've done everything necessary. And we got the easement as we wanted. And I do believe that notation probably will hold for the IA system on the survey. So, I think, it meets zoning. And I don't think there's anything that the public can say that's going to sway us here. So they can see the project. I don't know if a public hearing is really going to produce much interest.
All right, Randy. Thank you, Sharon. Randy? Yeah. Randy?
Yeah, got it. I see, this might be a question for David, that it shows there's a note on the survey that there's a proposed 12-inch water main extension, and then it shows water service from a water main going up the driveway to the two houses.
Mhm.
Is your client going to put in the water main extension?
Yeah, they're tackling that with the county, with the Suffolk County Water Authority now. They intention in their application is to run public water.
Okay. Yeah, as far as the hearing, there's two neighbors there, two residential neighbors. And so I think I would be in favor of a hearing. It's a substantial change to their privacy and all that. So I think we should give them a chance to come in if they want.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Thank you very much, Kathy.
I agree that there should be a public hearing. One thing I want to thank the applicant for the easement. I think this has gone pretty smoothly. And I want to thank David and his client for working with us on that. I'm totally satisfied with the, siding of the septic and that it's a low nitrogen system and all the rest. But the thing that worries me a little bit about this is that this is a big stand of oak and other undisturbed lands here. And it's in a special groundwater protection area. And I wonder if we could ask for a clearing envelope for the lot where the house is now, because I know they're going to, that's coming down and it's going to go someplace else. But it would be nice to try to limit some of the clearing there to what has already been cleared, if it's at all possible. I wondered if the applicant would consider that, if there's support on the board for that request.
There is a clearing restriction in place here, but I think it's a good idea, Kathy. I also think that it screens the two closest neighbors are screened by that existing vegetation. So
Right.
Why don't we go around and see if anybody else wants to pick up that idea? And Sharon, if you wanted to say anything on that, chime right in. Since we already.
Yeah, if the applicant is willing to do that, I think it's a good idea.
Okay, thanks. All right.
I thought that the house that's there now was going to be torn down, and a house could not be built on that same spot because it would violate the setback rules. So how would it work if we had a clearing envelope in that area if you can't build a house in that spot?
Well, the clearing envelope would just limit the amount of clearing. It would would try to incorporate as much of the cleared area into the proposed new building as possible. That's my proposal.
Yeah, maybe we can look on this map.
I don't think, that's something that would have to be drawn by someone that understands this better than I do, but it's a special groundwater protection area. And because, this is going to be two lots now, and like is not the northernmost, or I'm not sure which way I'm looking here, but the lot with no house on it is likely to have a house on it at some point. And there is an existing house with clearing. It just seemed to me if we could work with the applicant to possibly try to contain most of the clearing for the new domicile within the cleared area, that would be a good thing.
Hey, Marco, could you show us where the house is, the existing house is on this particular site plan that you've got up?
It's a little bit faint, but if you can read the text here, that's where the existing house is, roughly here. It goes.
Oh yeah, it says existing. It says existing one-story frame, single-family dwelling to elevation 90.6 to be demolished.
Yeah, and that's to be demolished. So because of this line here, the property line here, the proposed house would have to move back a little bit. That's about it, really.
Yeah, I have no problem Kathy's idea. I think it's a good idea. I was just wondering if it's going to conflict with the setback rules because it's so near the property line.
Right, if I may,
Please.
I appreciate the concern, but as Marco pointed out, and you can see it on the hard copy of the survey, the existing clearing line is essentially just right around the back of that existing house. And that has to be removed. The new house has to be set back farther from the shared property line. And it's almost already, I mean, the proposed new house, half of it is outside of the existing clearing line already. And we are we're not HPOD, we're not water recharge overlay. There are clearing restrictions that we have to be compliant with. And I don't see something that an as of right ability for construction and clearing that my client would be willing to sacrifice that substantial amount when, if you see the hard copy of the survey, you'll see that it's really not possible to stay within the existing clearing for either house.
Just for one thing, for what it's worth, it is under the Southwark Special Groundwater Protection Area.
Right, but under the East Hampton Town Code, there's no additional clearing restriction because of that.
Okay.
Right, I'm not proposing a clearing restriction. I'm just proposing that you mark the clearing envelope on the property. That's all, and that as much of it as can be contained within the existing clearing, it should just be on the plan.
Well, let's go around and see how the rest of the board feels about this. Because
I just wanted to clarify that with David. I didn't.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
I'm just, if I misunderstood, my apologies. I'm just saying that I know it's hard to see on the Zoom but when you look at the paper copy, you can see where that existing clearing line is, and it's essentially for a driveway. That's where the existing cesspool to be removed is drawn.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dashed line that's around that's the existing limit of clearing. There is practically no clearing on the front lot that's being proposed except for the existing driveway. And like I said, on the rear lot, just to move the house and to provide the amenities that would be typical for a lot of this nature, it can't stay within the existing clearing. But I understand Kathy's clarification that kind of just wants an envelope.
That's all.
Yeah,
just show where the clearing will be. And, we could take some comfort in the fact that some portion of what's already been cleared would be within that clearing envelope. And it would also, show us what is, what to expect. I understand that you can't put it in the same place. That's understood.
Mm-hmm.
And I really back it into the land. I'm just saying, please depict the clearing envelope and be as judicious as you can with the trees there.
So it's really illustrating the existing clearing code requirement in one shape.
Right. So you just want us to show where the 20, we'd be permitted to clear 21,000 of that lot too, just to show where that 21,000 is, not to limit it below 21,000.
No, I'm not suggesting,
Okay.
like to, that'd be great, but that's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm saying, please depict it on the survey, on the plan, so we can see what portion of it is incorporated into the existing clearing, and hopefully some measure of it will be.
It might be good for the hearing too, if the neighbors can
Yeah.
how much of the trees are going to be left up.
Exactly. I don't see it as a,
No, I'm once it's been clarified, I thought the ask is different than what you.
Yeah, no, I just want it depicted. That's all.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Ian.
I don't have much to add. I think as far as the clearing goes,
I think generally we use that on larger properties where we're trying to create an envelope in which, the code allowed clearing can exist. If the applicant wants to offer that, I'm certainly not opposed to it, but I don't see it as strictly necessary here. And otherwise, I think the application is complete. And I do think this is pretty straightforward within the bounds of our code and not very controversial. So I could do without a public hearing, but I realize the board's probably thinking we should have one, and I'm not against it. I just don't think it's necessary.
Okay. Lou, I presume you have nothing else you need to add, so.
Nope.
Okay, so Ed?
Yeah, again, not a whole lot to add here. This is pretty straightforward. I like the idea of defining a clearing envelope for the 21,000 permitted square feet of clearing. I think that is a really good idea. I would ask for that. And thanks for bringing that up, Kathy. That's smart. But I feel, as others have said on the board, that it's pretty straightforward. I don't know that a public hearing is going to yield much in the way of kind of comment that we can really react to. So I would, if the board wants to do a public hearing, great. But I would say we can go without one.
Okay, thank you. For myself, I take Ian's point that usually these envelopes are on bigger properties. So I don't see the necessity, but if the applicant wants to do that, then I think that's great and good. We'll do that. I do think we should have a public hearing on this, if only because it's a it's a residential lot that's going to become 2 residential lots surrounded by many other residential lots. And I think that we shouldn't deprive the neighbors of the opportunity to let us know how they feel about that. I know that more often than not, these public hearings don't yield in this kind of a situation. May not yield a lot of information, but I wouldn't want to deprive any neighbor of the opportunity to impart that to us. Let me go around the table, and because I think I hear Randy, Kathy, and me explicitly for a public hearing. Is there anybody else who's for a public hearing? Because otherwise, we may be 4-3 on that. Is there?
I would go with your reasoning, Sam, is kind of the way I feel. So I would go for a public hearing.
Okay. Anybody else want to chime in on that? Because if not, we've just gone from 3 to 4 to 4 to 3. So, okay. I think what we'll do. So does everybody agree that we'll do a public hearing? That you may not be for a public hearing, but we all agree that there'll be a public hearing because there's 4 to 3 sentiment on the board for that. Am I right on that, folks?
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
Math checks out. Yep.
We'll see that. They should have me counting. Well, I'm getting started with it. So, all right. So, Mr. Kurtz, you hear it. There'll be a public hearing. We'll have a resolution at the next meeting. I trust the planning department can get that together for us, and then we have. And you'll, if you're willing to do that building envelope, then that's great.
If I may, I'm willing to do it only if the board's requiring it. I personally don't feel it's necessary, and from what I hear from the board, it seems like a majority of the board may not feel it's necessary. I know this is a fluid property. There's houses. There's not even. I assume there'll be pools. I don't know if there's room for tennis, but I don't. I think we have a limit by the code of 21,000, and that may shift depending on their design of what the house gets built, where the pool goes. I'd hate to lock in some sort of envelope that may, they may want to change.
Well, I think that we had only 2 people on the board, myself and Ian, who were, not necessarily in favor or requiring the building envelope. Am I right on that? Is there anybody else who doesn't want to require a building envelope?
Can I ask a question about that? Do we have authority via the code to require A building envelope?
It's a clearing envelope. It's
A
not.
clearing envelope,
Yeah,
sorry.
I misspoke.
Sorry, clearing envelope.
Yeah, it's a
So-
clearing.
My understanding is that, and Marco and the planners, please correct me, but my understanding is that there's the clearing restriction, and that's really it as far as what is in the code. So I don't see where where the board has anything explicit in the code, granting the authority to prescribe a clearing envelope.
Joanne indicated that we could do that, so.
Council's telling us that, though.
Yeah, I mean, Joanne, do you see anything in the code that would?
I don't think Joanne is here.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Joanne's not here at the moment.
Well,
Okay, well then, if we're going off my answer is no. I don't think there's authority in the code.
if there isn't authority in the code, then we can't compel it. It doesn't matter whether it's 5-2 or not.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. Anybody else on this? I guess I'd say to the applicant, you understand that, there are a number of people on the board who would very much like to see a clearing envelope and, be scheduling.
Well, yeah, it's really a shame that we don't have Joanne's experience here because she was pretty explicit today. But, I can't point to a code section. So I guess we're stuck with this then.
All right, so that will take care of this one, and thank you very much. We'll, Marco, we'll be able to get a public hearing notice up for the next meeting, I trust?
Yep, sure thing.
All right, we'll have that, very good.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, all right, it is, right now, it's 6:57. We have a public hearing scheduled at 7 o'clock. It would be my recommendation that we do something off the regular meeting, maybe one of the extension of time matters.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Let's just do that.
So, Ian, are you prepared to go forward with the Megron Realty extension of time?
Yes. Yes. I just have to. I'm sorry, Sam. Just give me 1 minute.
No, I know I'm catching you off.
That's all right. It'll just take a second.
Just Kathy, if we have another minute after we do this one, we'll do.
Yeah, I'll get Snyder ready. Yeah.
If you have Snyder ready, why don't you do Snyder?
Yeah, I've got it.
Okay.
Yeah, and in the matter of the application of Megron Realty for an extension of time for a period of 1 year or until August 15th, 2021, I've read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all around. 7-0. Okay, thank you very much. Kathy,
The matter of Snyder Phase Commercial Site Plan Special Permit for an extension of time. In order to obtain a building permit for Phase 1 and 2, this is a phased project, to extend the period of 1 year or until December 18th, 2021. I read the resolution and move for its adoption.
is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very well. Let's do schedule the public hearing on East Hampton House Pool. I'm holding off on the Verizon Wireless at 106 because that one's on our site plan review.
Yeah.
So we'll come up on that. And then we should be just at 7 o'clock. So Ed, can you do the motion on East Hampton House Pool? You ready for that?
You know what? Jody sent me another
By surprise.
hearing notice for the hearing we're having tonight. I don't have one for the East Hampton House.
I can read East Hampton House Pool. I've got it right
Do you
here.
have it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it.
Okay.
In the matter of the application of East Hampton House Pool Site Plan to schedule a public hearing for Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard. I've read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, 7-0. Okay, thanks very much. Ed, sorry to catch you by surprise. But
Yeah,
you'll have
no,
a chance-
I
you'll
knew
have
it
a
was
chance to
coming.
do another one in a little while when we get to the Verizon on Stephen Hand's path. So check your file, make sure that is that one.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. It is 7 o'clock. There is a public hearing scheduled. I am recused. So I'm going to blank away and leave it to Kathy. I'll keep my volume on just so that I can hear you when you shout my name.
Okay. All right, so thank you. We're moving into the public hearing for Acobonic Grove Cemetery Expansion 2 site plan. Ed, this is yours. Can you read the notice, please?
I can indeed. Yes. Notice, what is our habit these days? Do we actually read the entire thing or can
No.
we summarize?
You can read, well, I don't know. Jody, do we have to read the whole thing? Jody?
Well, it's good to identify the site, tax map, and the date and the
Yeah.
place of hearing.
Yes, we normally read it. Here's,
Read the
All right,
whole-
all right. It's actually not that long. I'll read it.
Yeah, the affidavit's all in order and everything?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what Jody says. Okay.
All right, so I'll read it. Notice is hereby given. The public hearing will be held before the East Hampton Town Planning Board on Wednesday, November 4th, 2020, today at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard, to consider this application. The public hearing will be held electronically by video and teleconferencing, televised on LTV, and available for live stream on the LTV website. The public shall not be permitted to appear, but may comment by telephone by calling 351-888-6331. A transcript of the hearing will also be posted to the town's website after the hearing, and the hearing shall remain open until December 4th, 2020, for the purpose of receiving written comments. Written comments may be submitted by email directed to planningboard@ehamptonny.gov and received on or before by mail to 300 Panago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton 11937, and received on or before close of business on December 4th, 2020, or within 1 week of the posting of a transcript on the town's website, whichever is later. This public hearing will be held to consider the application of Acobonic Grove Cemetery Expansion 2 site plan to make a secondary expansion to an existing cemetery by adding 369 plots consisting of 319 standard and 60 cremains plots, with 10 plots to be abandoned, resulting in a total of 1,547 plots. The property is located at Old Stone Highway Springs and is situated in A5 Residence Zoning District, as shown on the official zoning map of the town of East Hampton. The premises are identified on the Suffolk County tax map as parcel 300-103-2-4.10. The Acobonic Grove Cemetery Expansion 2 site plan file is available for inspection at the Planning Board offices at 300 Panago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York. Dated October 16, 2020. Samuel Kramer, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, so which planner is just going to take us through the description of the project? I'm not sure whose this was, Marco or
I'll do
Fabio?
that.
Kathy, we actually have an issue with the affidavit of service and posting.
Oh, for pity's sake. Okay.
Yeah, so Jody just pointed this out to me a few minutes ago, but the requirement in the code, section 255-923, is that the notice go out 10 days prior to the date of hearing. According to the affidavit I have here, it went out on October 28th, 2020, which is 7 days ago.
Goodness.
So
we can't play tonight?
yeah, unfortunately, I don't think the notice is sufficient.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, we didn't get it till this afternoon, but I think we'll have to reschedule it.
Okay. Well, thank you for your guidance on that. So to the public who may have been assembled to make comment on this, certainly to the applicant, we'll have to take another stab at this. So I would work with Thomas to make sure that the posting is done correctly, and we'll try to get to it for the next time. I don't know how long it's going to take to cycle through again. If we've got to renotice it, that's, somebody else will be able to advise you on how many weeks it'll be before we can get to the public hearing again.
And
Okay.
Thomas, renotice the neighbors, the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot to renotice the hearing. So I would, for Dan, who's on the Zoom, I would say we'll try to get a resolution for next meeting, which would schedule the hearing at one of the December meetings.
Okay.
And to the board, that's my mistake. I actually didn't, get him out in time. I've always relied on my father to take care of this, and this is on me. So I'll get it corrected.
Okay. Well, thanks, Dan. Sorry about that.
No problem. It's got to be done correctly. We want the public to have a chance to comment. So.
Sure thing. All right. Well, thank you. Okay. Well, that was brief. Sam, we're on to the next thing.
Hold on, sorry,
Is he with
folks.
us?
I'm back.
Okay, great.
Hey, thank you. And I guess I'll bring my book to the next meeting. So, all right. The next matter we have is 106 Stephen Hans Path. And Eric is under the weather. So, Marco, you're taking this one?
Yes.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay. This is just the aerial. Okay. So an application has been made for a new personal wireless service facility consisting of a new 110-foot AGL stealth monopole containing 8 interior mounted panel antennas, a 10-foot by 17-foot, 170 square foot concrete pad with a canopy to situate electrical equipment on, an emergency propane generator with a 250-gallon tank, all to be situated in a 1,353 square foot fenced-in compound along a new gravel access road, lighting and revegetation. The subject parcel is situated in Wainscott and is zoned A5, residents with a water recharge overlay district designation. It is owned by the town of East Hampton and contains maintenance and storage facilities of the East Hampton Town Highway Department. The property is also situated in a number of areas unique for special groundwater protection, including South Pitt County designated Pine Barrens and the South Fork Special Groundwater Protection Area. There are expansive areas of freshwater wetlands to the immediate west and partially on the subject parcel. So at the time of the last review, the board stated that the light fixtures for the canopy equipment area should not exceed 12 watts if they are to be LED fixtures in order to ensure compliance with the applicable lighting standards of the town code, as well as the planning board's guidelines for exterior lighting. A copy of the specifications sheet indicating a 12-watt fixture has been added to the lighting plan, and a photometric plot indicates foot candle measurements in compliance with applicable regulations and guidelines. However, this fixture is a floodlight type, which can be repositioned so as to not be fully cut off. Additionally, other notations on the plan still indicate a 52-watt fixture. The lighting plan should be amended accordingly. At the time of the last review, the board stated that the plans should be amended to indicate crushed quartz gravel for the access road. This notation has been made. The planning department has prepared the attached EAF parts 2 and 3, a negative declaration pursuant to SECRA, and Chapter 128 of the Town Code is recommended. In conclusion, the application will be complete once an amended lighting plan has been submitted. However, it appears that the application is otherwise complete and ready to be scheduled for a public hearing once the board makes a SECRA determination.
Thank you very much, Marco. I should have asked before we got started, is the applicant on the line?
Yes, hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Denise Vista with the Model Law Group. How are you? Nice to see you.
Very well, thank you. Good to see you again. Okay. You have anything you wish to add?
Yes, I actually emailed Eric Shantz the revised drawings earlier today reflecting his lighting comments. He said they were approved and will be filing them hard copies probably by, if not tomorrow, then by Friday.
Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear that, and that should get us right through once we get through the EAF, and then we can, what we have on our agenda, as you probably heard before, to schedule a public hearing.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else that you might want to add?
No, not at this time. I think, like we said, the application is complete once you receive those applications, and we're ready to proceed to the hearing.
Terrific.
All right.
Thank you. Ed? Ed, do you have anything on? Well, it's your application, so. I'll read
Yes,
through
I do.
Ed, for what it's worth, just so you know, I'll read through the EAF after, we all talk. So
You'll do what? Sorry?
I'll read through the EAF, the environmental assessment form.
Right. Yeah. I mean, do we need to, point by point? You're
No,
gonna
not every single one. The way I envision it is, I'm just going to mention the headings, see if anyone wants to say anything. The only one that I'm going to go through point by point is, I think it's number 9, which is the only one where we have that's impact on aesthetic resources. That's the only one that the planning department has identified as having any moderate to large impacts.
Right.
So the idea will be that I'll go through them presumably quickly, and if anyone wants to say anything, stop me and we'll talk about that. But
Yeah.
one is either
Okay.
no impact or minimal impact. So
Right.
okay.
Yeah, exactly. No, that is the only category, the aesthetic
Right,
resources
right.
impact that had any comments. So yeah. All right. So yeah, I want to thank the applicant for responding to all of our requests since we've been considering this over the last couple of months to respond, because we had aesthetic concerns. Many of our concerns were about this, were the visual impact that this would have on the neighborhood. You provided us with a lot of mock-ups and representations of what this thing will look like from various points around the area that we asked you to. So thank you for that. I think, my opinion is this is, very much necessary, and is probably in the best, it's located in the best position that it possibly could be with the least impact visually on the surrounding area. So I support the application from that point of view. The only other issues that we had come up with after discussing the issues of grading was this notion of asking you to specify a crushed quartz driveway, which you did. The lighting plan, we know that has to be amended. It seems like you have amended it already, so that's good. And yeah, I did get a chance to go through the AF a little bit with Eric earlier today, and I really had no comments on any piece of it, but I do think we should at least speak about category 9, as you said, Sam, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, very well. All right, as I indicated before, there are, 14 or something categories that are subject to the EAF. I'm just going to read 18 categories. I'm going to read off the name of the category, and I'll indicate whether or not there's an assessment by the planning department that there's an impact. Many of these, they say there's no impact at all. All but number 9, to the extent that there is an impact, it's the assessment of the planning department that it's a no or small impact. So if anyone disagrees with that analysis, stop me and we can go into that particular impact. But otherwise, the only one we're going to go line by line is number 9, which is the aesthetic impact, which does have a few moderate to large impacts. So,
Marco, is it possible to show us the whole site plan survey, or would it not fit on all those notes on the right side are cut off?
I don't know if you can really read them.
Andy, if you can read that.
I know, it's hard to.
You can send me a private message and I can zoom over certain parts if you like.
Oops.
Kind of a little bit too hard.
We can't hear you, Marco.
Yeah, Marco, you were muted.
Sorry. Yeah, it's kind of small to look at. So
All right, that's better though. Thank you.
if you'd like me to zoom in on certain sections, you can just let me know.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so folks, I'm going to read it. I'll say that there is no or small impact or none. Stop me if you want to go into that. Number one is impact on land, and all the impacts are no or small impact may occur. Number two, impact on geological features, and there are no impacts on that. Number three, impacts on surface water, and there are impacts, but there are no or small impacts. Number four, impact on groundwater, and it's no impact on groundwater. Number five, impact on flooding. Again, no impact. Number six, impact on air, and again, no impact. Number seven, impact on plants and animals. Again, no impact. Number eight, impact on agricultural resources. Again, no impact. Okay, now number nine, impact on aesthetic resources. A, proposed action may be visible from any officially designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource. And that is identified as a moderate to large impact may occur. Anybody want to dispute that or change that? Please chime in now. Hearing none. The next is the proposed action may result in the obstruction, elimination, or significant screening of one or more officially designated scenic views. That is identified as no or small impact may occur. Anybody have any dispute with that? Hearing none. The next is a two-parter. The proposed action may be visible from publicly accessible vantage points. Number one is seasonally, for example, screened by summer foliage but visible during other seasons. And again, that is listed as no or small impact may occur. Any comment? None. The next is year-round, and again, that's identified as no or small impact. No comments? Okay, continuing. The situation or activity in which viewers are engaged while viewing the proposed action is, number one, routine travel by residents, including travel to and from work. And that is identified as moderate to large impact may occur. Does anyone have any dispute with that? None? Okay, number two is recreational or tourism. I'll read the whole sentence. The situation or activity in which viewers are engaged while viewing the proposed action is recreational or tourism-based activities. That's identified as no or small impact. And no comments on that. All right, next, the proposed action may cause the diminishment of the public enjoyment and appreciation of the designated aesthetic resource. That's identified as no or small impact may occur. And hearing no comments on that, the next one is, and it'll be the final one, there are similar projects visible within the following distance of the proposed project. And it's hard to understand what they're referring to, but I think it's 0 to a half a mile. And that's identified as moderate to large impact may occur. Anybody change on that? Okay, none. All right, now I'll continue with the ones that are either no impact or all listed as small impacts. Number 10, impact on historic and archaeological resources, no impact. Number 11, impact on open space and recreation, no impact. Impact on critical environmental areas, that identifies as having no or small impact may occur. Number 13, impact on transportation, no impact. Number 14, impact on energy, no impact.
Sam,
Okay, go
I
ahead.
well, I think the first, if you read the smaller points,
Okay.
obviously this is using propane and it's using electricity. So I don't see that we can just exit out. It may be a small impact, but it's having some.
Well, you're talking about A, the proposed action will require a new or an upgrade to an existing substation.
No.
Okay, I'll read the next one. So that remains as none. B, the proposed action will require the creation or extension of an energy transmission or supply system to serve more than 50 single or two-family residences or to serve a commercial or industrial use.
Okay, no.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Or to serve a commercial industrial use.
Commercial
I
or
think
industrial.
that one might be a small, there is going to be a new, a new propane system, and there's going to be electricity used by this.
Okay, let me just read the other two, and then we can
Okay.
talk about this one as a totality. C is the proposed action may utilize more than 2,500 megawatt hours per year of electricity. And I don't know that we're in a position to make a judgment on that. The proposed and the last one is the proposed action may involve heating and or cooling of more than 100,000 square feet of building area when completed. And I don't think we have that at all here. So the only one is 14B. The proposed action will require the creation or extension of an energy transmission or supply system to serve more than 50 single or two-family residences or to serve a commercial or industrial use. So are you saying that, I guess what you're saying is that should be identified as no or small impact may occur.
Yeah, and therefore the energy thing should be yes and not no. Yeah.
Okay, does anyone have any issue with that suggestion? Anyone on the board?
No.
No? All right, in that case, Marco, if you could note that on number 14, please change that to yes, and please change 14B to no or small. Well, I guess you'll change all of them to no or small impact may occur.
So all of them for 14 is no small impact.
The one that the board has an issue with is B. Randy, I presume you're not going to say it's moderate to large impact.
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you for that. 15, impact on noise, odor, and light. That's a no all around. Anyone? No? Okay, number 16, impact on human health. That's a no all around. 17, consistency with community plans. That's a no all around. And 18, consistency with community character. That is a no all around. No changes to any of those? Okay, in that case, then I think we can move on to the issue of whether or not to make that. Well, I guess the question is, should the proposed exterior lighting and lighting plan be amended as noted above? And the applicants already indicated that they've complied, which we'll have that. So negative declaration, Ed, if you would be so kind.
Hey, Sam, before you go, I see there's a conditioned, the conditioned negative declaration choice.
What does that mean, Randy?
Yeah.
You can see there, we can either just say that there's no impact, or we can say that there's no impact because we've included a certain condition in the approval. In that case, it's a conditioned negative declaration. And I just wondered if we should put that the 110-foot height is the condition based on which we're saying there's no negative impact because we've identified that as a major impact.
But
Randy, this is Joanne. That would be more the project description. I think that that's your project description is that it's that height.
Okay. I mean, I wasn't sure. It just seems like,
Yeah, that's what we're approving. I mean, we're, 110-foot tower.
yeah, it's in there. But I'm saying that the reason that we have a negative declaration is because we've included a mitigating condition in the project. That's what it says there. I don't know. It's sort of a legal call, really.
Yeah, I was gonna punt over the comments on that.
Yeah, I mean, my preference would be either make them negative declaration or a positive declaration. I think the height of the tower is a part of the plan, not necessarily a condition of approval. Even if you adopt a negative declaration without any condition or whatever, you can still obviously put conditions in the approval. It wouldn't limit your ability at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I would leave this as is and keep it as neat as we can. So Ed, if you would be so kind.
Yeah, I make a motion to make a negative declaration pursuant to SECRA and town code.
Is there a second? Someone?
Second.
Thank you, Kathy. Is that Kathy or Sharon? I'm sorry.
It was Sharon.
Okay, sorry about that, Sharon.
That's all right.
Okay. All those in favor of negative declaration on this?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None? Hearing none, 7-0. Okay. So why don't we do the motion, Ed, on the public hearing, scheduling the public hearing?
Yeah, you know what? I don't have that one either, I'm afraid.
Okay.
Kathy, do you have that one also? Kath?
She's looking, I think. Kathy, you're muted. You're muted.
I've got it.
You have it?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mindy.
Want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
The matter of the application of Verizon Wireless 106 Stephen Hance Path, site plan special permit, personal wireless service facility, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-193-24. The resolution to schedule a public hearing. A public hearing is hereby scheduled Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard to consider the said application. The public hearing will be held electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV, LTV channel 22, and available for live stream on the LTV website, ltveh.org. The public shall not be permitted to appear in person, but may comment by telephone by calling 351-888-6331. A transcript of the hearing will also be posted to the town's website after the hearing, and the hearing shall remain open until January 2nd, 2021, for the purpose of receiving written comments. Written comments may be submitted. Written comments may be submitted by email directed to planningboard@easthampton.gov and by mail to 300 Panago Place, Suite 103, East Hampton, New York, 11937, and received on or before close of business January 2nd, 2021, or within 1 week of the posting of the transcript on the town's website, whichever is later. I've read the resolution and move for its adoption.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed and carried, 7-0. And we will delete the barking from the transcript of the meeting. All right, thank you very much. I think that covers that entire matter.
Thank you all very much. Have a nice evening.
All right, thank you, Ms. Vista. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Now it's on
It's
to
actually, Sam, it's actually snoring, not bark.
Snoring, I'm sorry. I'm bringing my own issue. We may be barking. All right, the shared generator program, and Marco, are you covering this one too?
Yes.
Okay, thanks so much.
And
Is the applicant on for shared generator?
Yes, Chairman, Chris Fisher.
Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
okay, site plan application has been made to locate a 192 square foot, 16 foot by 12 foot generator and associated cabling and equipment with an existing equipment area for the personal wireless service facility located at the Amagansett Firehouse property. The parcel is zoned A residence and is situated on Main Street in Amagansett. It is owned by the Amagansett Fire District. The existing cell tower was issued a building permit in 2004. The tower also contains equipment for the town and the Amagansett Fire Department. It is 100% cleared of naturally occurring vegetation. Pursuant to SECRA and Chapter 128 of the Town Code, the proposed project is a Type 2 action. At the time of the last review, the board stated that the concrete pad for the generator should be designed to collect spills. The planning department provided drawings submitted from a previous site plan application, which included a concrete pad designed to collect spills for a transformer. The applicants have submitted a letter from Cuddy and Furter, LLP, dated September 30th, 2020, which provides reasoning for why such a requirement is not needed. This includes that the generator is designed as a double-walled to contain any spills within the unit. The board should discuss the issue of fuel spill containment with the applicants, as this appears to be the only outstanding issue with regard to the application being able to be deemed complete. Pursuant to section 255-6-45, the proposed project qualifies as a minor site plan, meaning that the board can elect to waive the public hearing requirement. The board voted at the time of last review to require a public hearing. In conclusion, the board should decide if any information or changes to the plans are required or is the application is complete and ready to be scheduled for a public hearing at this time.
Okay, Marco, thank you very much. Thank you for covering that. Does the applicant wish to be heard on this?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Hi, good evening, everyone. Chris Fisher with Cuddy and Fader, and also on the call with me is Justin Crowell, who is a civil engineer with American Tower.
Hello, everyone.
Good evening. Welcome.
Just to give you some introductory remarks, and then I can let Justin explain some of the challenges they had in trying to come up with a design for a full tertiary treatment, if you will, for a concrete container system. This particular tower site, as you know, is behind the Amagansett Fire District building to the rear of the property by the railway station. And as you can see on the screen, it's not a full square typical compound, and it's fairly loaded with existing shelters, cable run, and existing infrastructure. If you see right on the screen, just to the entrance to the gate on the right is the location of this concrete pad and where the generator would be located. One of the things that's been happening, and it's probably not a surprise, generator sites and what the wireless industry and obviously some of the public safety entities are trying to accomplish is harden these sites for backup power when prolonged power outages occur. We've had that happen, obviously, on the island, PSCNG. There are instances, whether it's hurricane or other. So this particular project is intended to address a current need of T-Mobile to get backup power generation at the site. So for prolonged outages, wireless service can be continued and reliable. It's also sized so that it can be used by other tenants, including the fire department and others there. So they might be able to tap into it and be able to ensure there's continuity of power during long-term outages. The issue for American Tower is not that they wouldn't be happy to design a tertiary containment system. I mean, if this was an original new site, we probably could lay out something where that would make sense. I think there are two things going on. Refinement of space within the existing compound is a physical limitation. And then if I could just briefly have Justin explain what they did look at and actually tried to study and what they found in terms of the compound to try to accomplish a full volumetric tertiary treatment type containment. Justin, you want to comment on that, please?
Yeah, no problem. So the tank that is coming with this generator is a 300-gallon usable, 305-gallon total. So to be able to, contain that entire volume plus the 10% that was shown on the examples that was provided is going to create a quite a large pad that we don't have the room to create a footprint for here. So we've tried to, engineer around that, and to do that, we ended up, trying to design something that would be deep enough to do that. But in working with the limited footprint that we have, if we try excavating into the ground, there are conduit paths that need to be rerouted to be able to do that, which are going to end up disturbing service to multiple tenants on the site, which is going to be a bit of an issue for some of the tenants, but also something is going to greatly increase the cost of trying to get this project built if we're having to rerun utilities to multiple places there. Then we looked at trying to create this pad completely above ground, having a minimal embedment into the ground and having everything raised up. But in doing that, we're going to be able to, or it would cause a creation of a somewhat of a hazard for those that are going to work on it. If we elevate the pad too high off of here, we're going to end up reaching the realm where OSHA is going to require handrails, which is going to then further increase the footprint that's needed so that we can maintain the NEC electrical clearances around the generator while providing a safe environment for the those that would do maintenance and go to refuel the generator to be able to operate. So the spatial constraints are really what's coming into this, and then looking at either the two options that I just described would have a rather deep basin that's not very wide at the top, so we're going to have a limited surface area on that, which is going to stunt the natural evaporation of rainwater that would collect inside of that basin during normal rain events. So that altogether is going to end up stunting the effectiveness of the design that is being asked and requested here.
Question for you: can you guys use propane instead of diesel?
So the issue with propane is that you then have a 10-foot no spark buffer, and with all the equipment that's out here on the site, there's so much electrical equipment throughout here, there's not a good spot to be able to get a 10-foot no spark radius on the site while still being able to fit the generator on here as well. Because that was one of the alternatives that we tried looking into. And the spot where you see existing gravel surface up in the top middle-ish of the screen, that's the closest area to having that large of an area, but the H-frame just below it has electrical equipment on it, which would still impede the 10-foot no spark buffer. Looking at what we could do to make this the most acceptable as we can for this area, we've also gone to trying to make sure we're meeting the noise ordinances and everything. So we're ordering a increased durability and sound dampening enclosure to go along with this, and looking at the options and everything available for the tank. It is a UL 142 listed double-walled tank that is designed to contain 100% of the volume it can hold, and inside of the middle layer, in between the primary containment and the secondary containment, there is a leak sensor that is tied into communications that are then wired back to our ATC network operation facility. And so if we get a leak in between the primary containment and the secondary containment, we will get an alarm that triggers to our NOC, and that will result in having one of our field technicians go out to the site immediately, as well as a call to our fuel supplier, so that we can make sure that doing anything we can to mitigate and minimize any chances of any spills or anything at the site.
And Chairman, just one last comment from me on this. What happens now, the existing condition without a permanent backup generator source on site, is if you have a prolonged outage, multiple tenants will roll up temporary generators. So existing conditions in a prolonged power outage are actually more impactful, because you've got multiples of entities trying to roll up a temporary generator, plug it into their equipment, run it on site. So we think this is a really good solution. We just unfortunately can't fully accommodate a full tertiary containment system, not without trying to look at that as a solution. And I guess what we're asking for It's simply just an acknowledgement of some of those limitations on this site and to approve the site plan so that we can amendment just to put this full-time generator there permanently. And as far as a procedural matter, I'm not sure that this would trigger any need for a public hearing. It's a simple administrative modification and fully compliant with all the health and safety laws in the town.
I think we've already set this on for a public hearing.
Actually, I thought procedurally it was deferred until we came back with further information. So I'm not so sure there's been a.
Okay, well, we can straighten that out in a minute. If you have nothing else, then Sharon, this is yours.
Yeah. No, I guess, they make a good argument about the space limitations, and I did read through the memo that they provided, Cuddy and Fetter, and the double-walled containment should work with the alarm, but I, not being an expert on this, I would have loved a little bit more guidance from Eric, and just to make sure that this is going to contain the spill. But the memo makes it seem like it will, and if the board has more knowledge than I do, I'd be willing to hear them out.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Randy?
I understand the arguments, and a double-walled tank is a reasonable alternative given all the constraints. I would just mention though that usually this system is probably only going to be used if there's a extended power outage, and that may mean that the alarm for the spill would not be sent to your central offices because the power's out.
It would go off.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. Anything else? No? Okay, Kathy?
Well, I think Randy brings up a good point. I've been hoping we could get something more secure here in terms of a spill. And sometimes for me, it isn't even the worry about the tank itself, but when the tank is filled, if there's a spill with the, somebody comes and puts gas in it, right? The diesel fuel delivery, that worries me a little bit. Where do the technicians come from if this alarm is sounded to come? And if the skin is penetrated in some way, that where are they coming from to attend to it? When you say they're sent out right away, what's the travel time for them?
Well, one thing noting the lack of communications that was just mentioned a moment ago, the communications set up for this generator is actually wired to be powered by the generator as part of our design, so that you don't lose communication whenever power goes out. And you'd actually have to have downed lines so that all communications have been knocked out, which would also trigger somebody from our group to travel out to there. As for the location of the nearest field technician, I'd have to verify that. We have a large number of field techs stationed across the entire U.S. That all have assigned regions and shouldn't be driving from very far away from here. I wouldn't imagine they're going to be going more than like an hour or something to that nature. But we also have a set up and broad contract with our fuel suppliers, who have multiple subcontracted fuel suppliers in each of the regions that would be able to also deploy out to these sites to help check if for some reason our OSL is not going to be able to get there fast enough. So we tried to build in a multiple layers of protection in this, for not just this site, but for all the sites that we're dealing with these.
What does OSL mean?
Oh, sorry, Operation Site Lead. That's another term we use for a field technician. I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I'm just trying to, Operation Site Lead, L-E-A-D?
Yes.
Okay. So here's the thing. We live on a peninsula here, and there's only one main road, And, I mean, we've got to have this generator. I'm not suggesting we shouldn't do it. I just want to underscore to you and your company how important these spills are to us, because if it takes somebody an hour to get there, that tank could be empty by the time they get there. This is not an easy place to get to under the best of circumstances. And if there's any kind of a, if there's a cataclysmic power outage of the kind that we're describing, it doesn't mean that even local people are going to be able to access this thing with any alacrity to, mitigate a spill. So that's why we were asking for, a third measure. All these tanks are double walled. Every time a company comes in with these kinds of generator requests, we always ask for propane, because that eliminates this entire conversation. It's not, it's not the same hazard to the groundwater. But the further east you go, the harder it is to get to these places. And this is Namagansett. It doesn't get too much further outside of and this is on the east side of the hamlet. So I would like you to include what your protocol is for if there's a spill. If this tank, if the skin is pierced, I would like to know. I think it's reasonable for us to understand what our expectations could be for actual help in this instance. Yeah. Because I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but the fact of the matter is, it's just not easy to reach these places, especially if there's kind of an emergency that, might cause such a thing. So I would ask that protocol be included with times and, who is going to respond to this situation.
I think that's a good suggestion. We have no objection to that kind of condition. One of the things we've got obviously on this particular site as well is we've got the fire district there present. So we have some additional components to how to manage the site. And American Tower, to the extent that the board doesn't fully know them, they're a publicly traded company. They're one of the largest tower companies in the country. So they have certainly their own built-in systems on how to maintain, operate. These are well thought out resiliency plans and safety plans. So we have no objection to sharing that information and making sure that you're fully understanding in terms of the fire department, building department, of what our protocols are.
Yeah, I just mean, if we know it's going to take an hour for someone to get there, we have to shelter in place in our community. We don't have any place to go if there's a natural disaster. We have to be here. So if we're sheltering in place and there's a problem with this generator, we're going to need to take care of it ourselves. And we just need to, I want to know when that moment is going to kick in. If the technicians are an hour away. And I think, so that's really my concern. And we don't have to talk about it anymore.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. All right, nothing else, Kathy? Let me move on to Ian.
Yeah, I think I think this application is ready for public hearing. I think with respect to the spill issue, point of clarification, and the applicant, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the alarm is between the inner layer and the outer layer. So theoretically, if that alarm goes off, the spill would be contained in the outer layer, I believe. So that would then also have to have a leak for the spill to go further. So I think the idea of having a containment, am I right, applicant, by the way, on that?
That is correct. And these are pressure tested by the factory to ensure and verify all the welds and seals whenever being produced.
So it's not like the alarm goes off and there's fuel pouring out, probably, unless there's a secondary leak as well in the second layer. But I do think having a spill containment plan is probably something we should do. My concern when we talk about this is I don't think we have a ton of expertise to go on. I know that I don't. And I've heard people, these applicants included, concerned about the water that could collect in a containment basin that might actually make it worse. And I've heard that from other people before too. So I think if this is an issue and we're going to have requirements, we should probably just have standards here that we can always apply for what would be an appropriate containment basin or roof. We talked about at one point, and I'm not referring to this application in particular. and then having a containment plan. But as far as this particular application goes, I think it's ready for approval or for public hearing first.
Thanks very much. Lou.
I agree with all of the concerns, and even though I see the alarm and the double tank feature and the containment protocols that they have seem to be reasonable and safe. Nevertheless, I kind of, side with what Kathy was saying, because in case things do go wrong, it's a major problem for us. So even though it seems as though we're well protected and all the protocols are there to have a safe generator contained, I still am wary of something going wrong. So that doesn't help anyone. I know I'm just voicing how I feel about this. And I kind of, agree with Ian. I just don't have the expertise to take it any further than that. So for what it's worth, those are my comments.
Okay. And Ed, please.
Yeah, so you guys make a compelling argument. I mean, I understand the circumstances are such that you kind of needed an alternative to some of the things that we would normally look for. I understand that. But as other people have said, we're just taking your word for it to some degree, since we ourselves are not necessarily experts. But it certainly sounds like this is a solution that could be workable. Just a question for the applicant: is this particular system, this double-walled system and this kind of containment, is this unit that you're proposing here something that's been available for a while and has been sort of tested through use over years, or is it something new? Or I'm just curious.
We have thousands of these deployed across the nation, depending, various enclosures on the top. Like I mentioned, we put the sound dampening enclosure on the top, which is separate from from the tank portion of it. But we also use these on a lot of Bureau of Land Management sites where they've got an extreme effort into making sure that they're conserving the land as best as they can, and this is the same type of practices that we're using at those sites. Some of which we may have, maybe 4 to 6 hours worth of driving from the last main named road to be able to get to the site in some of these instances as well. So we've definitely had this tested and applied in other regions, as well as some other coastal areas such as in Florida, Louisiana, and Mississippi, and different various floodplains and otherwise.
Okay.
I also think this is regulated by the Suffolk County Department of Health. I believe that all large fuel tanks are. I might be wrong there, and that the design standards are probably approved by them.
Oh, that's a good point.
I think it's over a certain gallonage, I think.
Yeah, I'm not positive. I mean,
it's over a certain gallonage. I mean, really, the likelihood that this outer skin is going to be pierced is not a strong one, but to have a mitigation plan in place that we understand and makes sense, and against which we can plan if it's not adequate for our area, seems a reasonable ask.
Yeah.
Let me go through Ed, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I was just going to conclude by saying that it's your pitch. It's a reasonable pitch. I kind of get it. It seems like this has been field tested. It seems like it's the right solution. We need the generator, but I think the request that Kathy made, that we have a pretty well thought out and detailed response protocol is smart. I
have one quick question. It's the site. I understand that you have this site constraint, but is that just the boundary of a leasehold between the tower company and the fire department? Is that what that odd shaped site is?
Good question, Randy, because there's a lot of land there, that's for sure.
If you go to page V101 on the set of CDs, that's a overall survey. You can see, and V102 has it as well. You can see where we're positioned on the property there.
Yeah.
Not 100% what's to the west. I believe I'm seeing a tree line, and so that would require further clearing to go out that direction. And then you can see the neighboring building that's constraining us on that property inside the parcel itself. So,
but it's just a leasehold boundary, right? It's a leasehold within the fire department property.
correct. It is a leased area within the fire department's property. Also just pointing out on here that you can't see the boundary of their property. So there's not really anywhere to go to the north while on the same property. And then the existing story and a half masonry building that is also constraining us on that side.
Well, where I'm going with that is I'm wondering if it's possible to put a propane tank on, for outside of your leasehold that would have, a feed line going into the leasehold, or maybe the fire department could just put a little bump out, and then you'd solve that spark problem. Is that more trouble than it would be worth?
I think Justin and I would say that's a reasonable kind of question for us. I think a piece that we struggle with, and this is more just the nature of this project, it's a generator, and it's not that these are all great questions. The cost and time to pursue those solutions probably aren't worth it for American Tower to spend the capital to figure that out, lease it, amend their lease, and do more work here just to be able to get the tenant who wants this done. I'm not saying it's an unreasonable request because we're problem solvers like you are. It's just that the cost of the project at some point is not worth doing.
Let me do this. Let me go ask the board if they think we need more information, or can we deem it complete? Let me just go around the table one more time again. Just yes or no. Sharon?
No, I don't think we need more information. I think if they're willing to give us, that protocol on dealing with a spill, if that happens, that's great. But other than that, I think it's complete.
Okay. All right, Randy?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it being pretty good, and the explanation is good. And I understand you don't want to spend a fortune. So I'm pretty much okay with moving ahead.
Kathy?
Same.
Okay, good. Ian?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. But I'll just say again, I would be in favor of coming up with standards for this so we don't have to reinvent the wheel each time it comes up. But that's a side.
Let's put that on the list of many things that we need to rationalize. Sarah, Lou?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, and Ed?
Yep, good.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure that, that this conversation wasn't holding up the determination that the application is complete and ready to be scheduled for a public hearing. So, which we do have to do, public hearing.
Chairman, is there any way to just on that procedural request, because I know you have the authority to waive hearings, and the one piece that's interesting on this application is it is technically an eligible facility request. I mean, we're looking to work with you, but I'm not sure that the public and anything that might come from a public hearing is going to change the design or anything of that nature.
I'm going to defer to council.
Yeah, so I'm looking at 255-645, which is the minor site plan provision. And I thought I heard during this discussion, does the structure require Suffolk County Health Department approval?
I don't think it does. I don't think that tank is big enough. I think it has to be over 500 gallons for the health department to kick in.
Okay.
Because that would trigger it if we would have.
I think so. I think it has to be 500 or more.
Okay, because if it requires health department approval, then the board doesn't have a choice.
Well, I don't know. Someone else should check that out.
Yeah. Marco, do you know?
Not off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but
I thought Joanne was on before. Is Joanne still on?
She's muted.
She's muted. Joanne? Joanne, you're muted right now?
What gallonage is the tank?
Yeah, we can ask the
250?
applicant. What's
300.
300.
300? But we're assuming.
Okay,
that-
I'm just ask the applicant. Do you know? I mean, I assume. Do you know if it requires health department approval?
I don't believe it does because of the size of the tank itself. And the nature of the request I think we had filed was just that this be treated as a tier 1.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you guys hear me? This is Eric.
Yeah.
Welcome. Hope you're feeling better.
I'm sorry. I haven't been, in the meeting so far. Not feeling that great, but no, they don't pass the threshold. You might remember some of the meetings that we've had where we've discussed wireless facilities and their backup generators where Eddie Schnell spoke. I believe the threshold is 1,000 gallons. I believe once you pass that on a particular site, then you are required to get health department approval under Article 12 of their standards. As the applicant's representative said, I believe they're 300 gallons. So I don't believe that they need that, they don't pass that threshold. They don't need to get approval of the health department for what they're proposing. I apologize again for just joining now. Since I didn't see the earlier part of the conversation, this is a question for the applicant. Have you considered using a propane generator? And then this spill issue becomes moot. I don't know.
Yeah, we went through that. We've been through that.
Doesn't seem to be.
Not without amending the lease, or I don't know, unless the fire department would just let you put a propane tank on their land. But I don't think we're going that way.
I think the only question we have left then is whether or not, since it's a minor site plan, do we want to require a public hearing? And once again, I'll go around the table. Sharon?
Yes.
Yes for a public hearing?
Yes for public hearing.
Randy?
I would say yes, just for the noise factor.
Okay. Kathy?
Yes.
Yes. Ian?
No, but I believe they have information on file that says they're below the noise threshold. But I think that would be a big issue if they didn't. So somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but if that's the case, then I don't think it needs a public hearing.
Okay. Lou?
Yes.
And Ed?
Yes.
Okay, so 6, and I'll also agree. So we will need a public hearing. For the record, that was 6-1 for the public hearing. So with that, we will have this, and again, Eric or Marco will be able to get us a resolution for the next meeting so that we can move this right along for the public hearing.
Yeah, we'll make sure that happens as is the usual procedure.
Yeah, good. Okay. All right, applicant, thank you very much for your participation and your input. And, we'll have a resolution at the next meeting on the public hearing. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, the next one is Winscott Wombles and Via. This one is yours.
Okay, the subject parcel.
I'm sorry, hold on one second. Jason, Mike, is there?
Yeah, is the applicant on?
I saw her in the Zoom.
Yeah, she's here.
I'm here.
Mike alerted me that there were callers on the line. Are there still callers on the line?
There are currently 3 callers on hold. If you'd like me to see.
Yeah, let's see what they are.
I'll unmute the first caller that's been on hold in a moment.
Okay. Thank you, Thomas.
I'm unmuting that call right now.
Caller?
Hello, caller. You're live with the planning board. Hello, caller.
Hello?
They could just be listening in, but I can mute them and move on to the second caller and hold.
Yeah, do that. Do that. Please, thank you.
Now. Hello, caller. You're live with the planning board. Hearing nothing, Chair, I can move on to the last one on hold.
Please, thank you, yes.
I'm unmuting the last call on hold now. Hello, caller, you're live with the planning board. Okay, perhaps they're all just listening in.
All right. We'll check again when we finish this one, and then we'll have the last one. Will be Home Sweet Home. Maybe they're on for that.
Okay.
Okay, is the applicant on? I'm sorry.
I'm here.
Okay, Britton, thank you very much. Okay, very well. Hello, welcome. Okay, Fabia, yours.
So the subject parcel is located along Montauk Highway in Wainscott. It's 14,053 square feet parcel in an A residence zoning district with 830 square feet building, which is pre-existing non-conforming office use, with a 280 square feet carport attached with it, and was demolished and replaced in place and in kind in 2018. So a site plan application was initially submitted in December 2018 to create 10 parking spaces at the back of the building, and initial evaluation was made by planning department, which raises some legal issues regarding the non-conforming use of the parking spaces. So the applicant requested to hold the review from the planning board, and they asked for interpretation for the building department regarding the non-conforming use of the parking spaces. So the principal building inspector made a determination based on the historic uses of parking spaces, and also Town Code 255-1-42A that says that made the determination that there are 8 pre-existing parking spaces that can be moved and continued and would not increase the non-conformity. So the applicant has submitted and revised the site plan with 8 parking spaces at the back of the building, including 1 handicapped spaces. They also propose new curb cut and propose to eliminate the front access, and also a new landscaping plan and lighting plan. So the access here, as you can see, is now 55 feet wide, and also currently the parkings are at the front of the building, as you can see from this image. So with this proposal, the parking would be relocated at the back as required by the Town Code 255-6-60-C, which requires that parking areas shall be placed at the rear of buildings so as not to be visible from the road. Also, the narrowing of the access will limit the conflict points and also improve the overall traffic along Montauk Highway. I should note that the applicant should make clear in the site plan that the existing access would be eliminated and there would be new proposed access, and also with the relocation of parking spaces at the back, the existing parking wouldn't be used at the front of the property. Also, the site plan should depict the proposed building coverage and proposed total lot coverage after the parkings are improved, so that the proposed lot coverage meets the maximum lot coverage for this size lot. So as you can see, there is an existing concrete sidewalk at the adjoining property here, and also in the landscape plan. It's not that clear in the scanned image, but there is a sidewalk shown in the landscape plan. So New York State Department of Transportation requires that sidewalks be connected be extended, and it's likely that a sidewalk would be required across the front of the parcel. So the applicant need DOT approval and approval for if they propose sidewalk in front of the subject property. So the proposed new curb cut and other improvements will require DOT approval. If the lighting proposed here and the trees are proposed along Montauk Highway, they would need DOT approvals, and preliminary comments from DOT should be submitted to the planning board. The landscape plan demonstrates lists of non-native species. Planning department recommends that native species be used that requires less irrigation and are more adapted to local conditions. Specifically, for the at the front, there should be native trees should be used at the front of the property that are more that goes more into with the rural nature of this area. The lighting keys are also shown in the landscape plan, and that depicts 12 path lights and 6 spotlights and 1 wall sconce. The lighting plan should be revised and with proper demonstration of Kelvin levels, lumen levels, and type of control. And also photometric plot should be depicted for all the fixtures, because as you can see, there are 4 path lights which are very close to the property line adjacent to residential properties. So foot candles should be provided, and make sure that the foot candles are 0 at the property line. Also, there are dumpster and utilities observed in the subject property that needs to be located in the site plan. And it has been board's policy to screen the dumpsters with 6 feet high screening or landscaping. The applicant shall provide an adequate screening stating the type and height of the screening on the site plan. The project is an unlisted action pursuant to SECRA and Chapter 128 of the Town Code. It is recommended that the planning board request lead agency status for the project. We also received fire marshal's comments and advised that the project is ADA compliant and is adjacent to public water and fire hydrants. So in conclusion, the application proposes to organize the layout of pre-existing parking spaces by relocating it from the front to back of the building with new egress or ingress to the site. The application needs NYSDOT approval for the new curb cut proposed and other improvements. The applicant needs to address the concerns mentioned and also revise the site plan, landscape plan, and lighting plan accordingly.
Okay, thank you very much for being here. Ms. Bistrian, would you like to have anything to say there?
Yes. Good evening, Chairman Kramer, members of the board. I'm Britton Bistrian, representing Wayne Scott Wombles 2 and the owner, Michael Davis. This application was reviewed previously by this board in 2018, but I thought a little refresher, since it's been a bit of time, might be helpful. The property is just over 1/4 acre and situated on the south side of Montauk Highway in Waynescott. The property was improved with an office commercial use prior to the adoption of zoning. In 2017, a building permit was secured to replace the existing structure in kind due to some life safety and mold issues on the existing structure. This permit was acted upon and a certificate of occupancy was issued earlier this year. My client has an intense interest in beautifying the entrance to Waynescott. The site redeveloped, he redeveloped the lot immediately adjacent. I'm sure as we've all driven by this, I can't imagine with one road in and one road out that you haven't. I think it's a beautiful entrance to the town. And the purpose of this project is basically to beautify this entrance, to organize it, similar to what he did to the lot on the west. I don't know if you remember, it was a diner, and it was a real, maybe a antique shop, and it had a lot of uncontrolled entrance and exits, a lot like this site does, and organized it very similar, one curb cut, and sort of put all the parking in the back so that you weren't looking at a big parking lot. For that project, and I just only think this is illustrative because it is the same owner. The Wainscott CSE honored him with an award last year for his outstanding commitment to the visual landscape of the Wainscott Business District. The intent at 407 is similar, to improve the structure, organize the landscaping, the parking, and to function better with a single access to the highway. And when we initially submitted the project in 2018, a question was raised about the legal number of existing parking spaces. We did an extensive research and coordinated with Ann Glennon to get an interpretation of what our legally pre-existing parking was. And that's how we arrived upon the 8 spaces. We put them in the rear of the building. We think that's an effort of good planning. Look at the architecture, don't look at a parking lot. And I believe it's, in keeping with the comprehensive plan as well. As for the technical comments that were raised in the memo, I'll note the following. Building and lot coverages, I can tell you that they're compliant. I think a layer was turned off on the survey. I have already looked at them. They're compliant, and I'll revise the site plan to include them. I don't believe the New York State DOT approval is required because this isn't actually a new curb cut. It's actually a reduction in the area of a curb cut. Right now, currently the curb cut is 110 feet wide, and we're going down to a 20-foot. I think there was a little bit of a stutter earlier. 56 feet is not the entrance. The entrance is only 20 feet of that 52-foot leg of the section of the property. But I will definitely investigate that further. But I would request that if it was found that we needed a DOT permit, that this board made that a condition of their approval and not something that would stop the forward progress of this application. Our intent is, we like to do this work this fall. That's not going to happen, but we would like to have this completed for the season next year. And then in terms of the Japanese Sephora tree, that is the same landscape plan that was approved by this board on 407. That's where it came from. So that tree, unlike some of the maples, there's a lot of power lines here, and they're all above ground and right in that location. These trees grow to a mature height that won't ever impede, won't grow up into the power lines and require constant maintenance. So I would like to have some comments on why we couldn't have those 2 trees there, because they match the trees on the property adjacent, and it's a continuous thought. The lighting plan, those are easy revisions. We don't exceed the foot candles. There's also a 6-foot fence around the entire rear of this property, but we will address those items. We'll also include the dumpster, a dumpster enclosure, and appropriate screening on our next landscape submission. And I think that touches on everything. I mean, we have no problem with any of the requested revisions. I think it's this, for some reason, this landscape plan is missing a lot of the layers. You can't see, there's sidewalks. There's a sidewalk shown in the front of the building that connects to the neighbor. There's also walkways to the building, bluestone paths that show up on the actual paper copy that for some reason I can't see them here. But there is no parking in front of the building. It's lawn area and walking surfaces, which I think if anybody looked at the paper copy of this, they'd see that. But we will resubmit and revise. And I hope that the board sees that this is really, this isn't increasing any floor area. It's really just cleaning up and making this site aesthetically and functionally more appropriate for the location.
Thanks very much. Okay, Randy, this one's yours. Isn't it?
Yeah. So thanks, Fabia, for your analysis and research. And it looks like an improvement. I don't really have anything to add to Fabia, except that I did look at the historical photos of this site, and Fabia's memo says that the building was demolished and replaced in place and in kind. And it's not replaced in place. It was moved up toward Montauk Highway. So that to me is, if that's important, it was moved. I moved fairly significantly closer to the highway without site plan approval. And now I kind of feel like this is an intensification of use. You look at the historical photos, there's not eight people parking here. And this is a residential district with a pre-existing non-conforming use. So that my overall thought is that they're pushing this whole non-conforming use, non-conforming building idea past the breaking point. But it appears that the building department gave them a CO. So that's really all I have to say.
Could I just clarify one thing, Sam?
Yeah, go right ahead.
About the DOT, it's been our experience that any changes you make to the within the Montauk Highway right of way requires state approval from the DOT, whether or not you're limiting in the access point, you're putting new curbing in, anything that you do requires DOT approval. So we do recommend that they go and discuss that with the DOT. Also, with regard to the landscaping, well, we do like to see native trees along the highway. There is not a big objection to having some, if there are power lines that these would interfere with, and there aren't any smaller trees or shorter trees that are native, that we wouldn't have a strong objection to continuing on the adjoining property.
Let's go around the table, see if anyone has any other comments on this one. And then we can do the questions. So Sharon, if you
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been covered pretty well. I don't really have much to add. You know, I do think it's a good idea to reduce that entrance and exit. You know, that's a pretty busy part of the highway. People are starting to go fast after they finish that light in Wainscott and they start to speed up there. So I like the safety aspect of it, but no, I don't have anything to add. I think Fabia, I should say, covered it well.
Randy, did you have anything else? Oh, well, no, Randy, sorry, it was your application. My bad. Kathy.
I'll just wait to see what the resubmission is. I think Randy raises an interesting point. I'd be interested to see the historic pictures of this, but I don't know where the more recent approvals are. So if it has, you know, maybe we need a little more information on that, but excuse me, is a general concept. I think that, you know,
It's definitely was not replaced in place.
Was it closer to the highway, or was it pushed back more?
Moved,
You're right.
moved closer to the highway.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
By lot, or?
I'd say 30 feet.
That's a lot.
Really?
Yeah. Well,
I'd like more information about that before I, you know, make too many more recommendations. I mean, the building is there. There's a certain amount that we have to deal with, even if it was done without site plan approval. Not sure we're going to go to the trouble of making them, you know, push the building back 30 feet. But I think it's a fair question to determine whether it is actually in the same place as it should have been.
Can I just interject here? Our building permit was not, I think that was just in the planning department memo. The building department permit did not say, it said in kind, in like in kind, it was not in place. It just had to be within the setbacks that were appropriate for the property. So there's no contesting that that building is not in the same location than the previous building. But that it did get a building permit. It was built in the location where the building permit was issued for and reviewed, and it got a certificate of occupancy. So, I mean, I would defer to Thomas on this, but is this, I'm not certain that this is something that the board has jurisdiction on under a CO. Thomas?
Well, I just,
I mean,
Well, we can have Thomas look into this, but
Can I finish my remarks?
yeah, go, please, Kathy, go right ahead. That's
You know,
fine.
I appreciate Britton, qualifying this. That's helpful. But I think Randy brings an important point forward, which is this an intensification of a pre-existing non-conforming use. Now, if it's got a CO and all the rest, there's not much we can do about that at this point. And I don't really have any questions for Thomas. I just want to have a better sense of this. And there's going to be a resubmission, so we'll get another look at it.
Okay, thank you, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think Randy asked the same questions that or brings up the same points that I would have brought up. It's a residential zone, you know, pre-existing non-conforming, and so obviously we have to be sensitive to the residential area, particularly behind it. But I think that it's CO'd, so that's sort of a building inspector call, and the same can be said with the parking. You know, I've known the site for a while, but if they have 8 pre-existing non-conforming parking spaces, then I think that's the building inspector's call, and it is what it is. So, in a lot of ways, I actually think moving the building towards the road within setbacks makes sense to hide the parking. But I do have some concerns. Well, I don't know if they're concerns, but I think the public hearing will be important here because we are now putting the parking in the back near the residential areas, which is great from, you know, the highway standpoint. But if this were a commercially zoned district, we'd actually have to double those setbacks. Ironically, we don't have to because it's a residential zone, you know, with a pre-existing non-conforming use. So I think the site layout makes sense, but I just want to, you know, say now that it will be important. We are moving a lot of parking spaces back to the residential area. I think it's well screened. I think it makes sense, but I will want to hear from those neighbors.
All right, Luke.
This one, I'm going to go with, you know, what we have, which is a building inspector's approval. Although Randy does make a good point, in my opinion, it's not as important as some other board members have made it out to be. Although, with the caveat that like Ian says, I'm curious to see what the other residents say about it. So that in itself could change my viewpoint. But again, I don't think there's anything that we can do there anyway. So overall, I like the overall plan. I really don't have a problem with it. And that's it.
Hey, Ed.
It does feel to me like an intensification of use, definitely. But as other people have pointed out, there's a CO here. We're going to have a resubmission. Let's see what that looks like. I'm mostly anxious to hear from the public, residents behind in particular.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Thanks, Ed. They definitely moved the building. I mean, I drive past there all the time. You know, there's a C of O, and it's within the line. It's within the setback. So there's nothing that we should get ourselves involved with on it. At least I don't think there is. I'm very glad to see the parking moved off of the highway. It's really a mess right now, and the pictures, the photographs do show that. As far as the landscaping goes, you know, I mean, I recognize that the Japanese trees will, you know, blend in with the property next door, but when you go east, it's much more naturalistic, almost all the way to Georgia Pond. I mean, there are breaks. You know, the post office obviously is a break, but you know, right along there, maybe some thought might be given to more naturalistic landscaping. I don't know. I would like to hear from the public on this. on all the points. But moving the parking off of 27, I think that's a big improvement. It doesn't, it doesn't work very well as it stands right now. So let me run through the questions, and if anybody has anything they wish to add, I think we've actually gone through this in the course of this. And by the way, this is could be a tremendous memo, and very, very covered all the bases. So thank you for that. Number one, we should discuss whether the applicant needs to revise the site plan to depict proposed building coverage and proposed total coverage with the application.
Yes.
That's a yes all around. Anyone disagrees, just shout out. The board to discuss if the proposed layout of the parking spaces is acceptable, and leaving aside issues of intensification of use. I don't think anybody disagrees about moving the parking in back, correct?
No.
All right. The board should discuss whether the landscape plan to be submitted with more native species proposed. And again, that, maybe we should, hear if anybody else has anything they want to chime in on that. I'll be, happy to hear from, but I'd like to see the applicant and the planning department work a little more on that. Anybody else on that?
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Kathy and Sharon, you were both speaking.
Yeah, I know. I think they should give it a try anyways.
Native.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Kathy?
Yes, I agree.
Anyone else? Okay.
Joanne is expressing a opinion that they might be able to work with. So I like your suggestion, Sam, if the planning department, the applicant can agree.
Yeah, just a little more exploration. I mean, I recognize that the applicant is concerned about, the power wires, and that's obviously a valid concern. It's a fluid conversation, and eventually it'll be one for the public. There'll be public hearing on it, I expect. All right, the board should discuss whether a revised lighting plan to be submitted, including all the required information, lumen levels, photometric plots, and type of control. I don't think anyone I think the applicant's all right with that. The board should discuss whether to depict all the utilities and dumpster on the site plan, and discuss with the applicant the screening required to enclose the dumpster. I don't think we talked much about that.
I guess I'm wondering why does a 850 square foot office building need a dumpster?
Pardon?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Randy?
Why does an 850 square foot office building need a dumpster?
The dumpster that was actually in that photograph was a construction dumpster.
Okay.
I think it's always a good idea to have a dumpster on a commercial site plan,
Okay.
just to have a trash location. Otherwise, then you just have bins blowing around. I think that's a good solution. I guess I'd be open to other solutions, but in general, office buildings have them, copy paper.
Okay. So, but what you're saying is it's not that dumpster. It's not that the one that we saw in the photo. That's not.
No, that's a C&D 20-yard dumpster. That was.
So we're planning for a more modest dumpster there.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Whereabouts is that going to be?
Won't she resubmit that after she's worked with these other things? Isn't she going to resubmit?
Okay, yeah, all right.
We don't have to go over the specifics of it now.
No, you're right. I was looking to see if it's on there. Okay.
Right. Let's just, go through the questions, and then Britton will send us something that's got these revisions on it.
I just thought that it was more specific, but it isn't. Board should discuss whether a sidewalk should be provided at the right-of-way of Montauk Highway, and I think that involves more than just the applicant. That also would involve DOT, right?
It's shown on the landscape plan.
Okay.
It's in there right away though, right?
Correct. We're going to go to the DOT for that and all the other things.
Right, that's what I meant. All right. And finally, should we request lead agency status?
Yes.
Randy, I'll leave it to you. On lead agency.
Yes, I make a motion, we take lead agency status.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Kathy, all those in favor?
Aye.
Lead agency, aye, aye. Any opposed? 7-0. Okay. Very well. So we'll look forward to seeing you again on this one.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Britton.
Okay. All right, finally.
Thanks, Britton.
Thank you, Ms. Bistrian. Next is Home Sweet Home Site Plan Special Permit, and Marco, it's yours. Do we have the applicant? Now, actually check, if you would, LTV, check the phone calls, see if anyone's in there, because I think we had somebody earlier on.
Pierre was there from the early times. The key.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, Chair, I will unmute the phone right now. Just one moment. I'm unmuting the first caller in queue. Hello, caller. You're live with the Planning Board of East Hampton. Hello, caller.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Could you please state your name?
This is Mark Pallotta from Key Civil Engineering.
He's representing.
Yeah, the representative for the engineering thing.
Okay.
And
Anyone
Chair,
else for the applicant? Anybody else on the phone?
There's one other caller. I'll also unmute right now.
Please, thank you. Appreciate that.
Hello, caller. You're unmuted. Can you state your name?
Joe Neitzel from Frank Ralph Architect of the application.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to the meeting. Okay, we'll first hear from the planning department, and then you'll have an opportunity to speak on the application. So,
okay,
Marco.
is our zoning attorney online, Brian Matthews, as well?
I thought I saw Brian's name up on the screen before. Is he still there? Is he trying to get in?
He was up earlier.
He's coming back in right now. Just a moment.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Okay. So, this is the aerial on the right. So site plan application has been made to convert an existing commercial warehouse into a self-storage facility. The revised plans seek to add additional stories to existing structures, increasing the gross floor area from 27,810 square feet to 56,728 square feet. This is an additional 1,050 square feet more than the originally proposed gross floor area of 55,678 square feet. Areas B, C, D, and F are proposed to be 2 stories. Area F also proposes additional story, which is where the additional square footage and units were added. Areas E and G are proposed to be 3 stories. The initial evaluation identified the number of units to be 465 units. The accurate and correct number would be 469 units after recounting. The new revised application has proposed an additional 7 units for a total count of 476. The parcel is located in Wainscott on the corner of Georgia Drive and Montauk Highway. It is zoned CI commercial industrial and is 100% cleared of native vegetation. The floor plans indicate that a second-level mezzanine is proposed for areas E and G. Under the town code, the proposed mezzanine will be considered a 3rd story. Floor plans indicate that the story will be serviced by an elevator lift contain 100 of the 476 storage units. The proposed mezzanine and mezzanine elevator access area would add an additional 7,639 square feet. Under the town code, story is defined as that portion of a building which is between one floor level and the next higher floor level or roof. For the purpose of measuring height by stories under the provisions of this chapter, one additional story shall be added for any pilings, piers, or other foundation which causes a building to be elevated more than 4 feet above adjacent natural grade. Under the table of dimensional regulations, a commercial industrial zone allows for a maximum of 2 stories. The applicant should revise their plans to meet the maximum allowable stories in a CI zone. Self-storage is not a defined use under the town code. However, previously approved self-storage facilities within East Hampton and the definition of the use from other municipalities can provide guidance in relation to parking. The Twin Forks moving and storage site plan provided 13 spaces for roughly 79,000 square feet of mini storage, which is roughly around 1 space per 6,000 square feet. This aforementioned application stated that 2 or 3 people will be in the office during 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. The town of Brookhaven and the town of Southampton require their self-storage facilities to have 1 space per 2,000 square feet of gross floor area. In contrast, Home Sweet Home proposes 6 spaces and a handicap space for 56,728 square feet, or 1 space per 8,104 square feet. The applicant has also noted that there will be a minimum of 2 employees located during working hours. There are 3 additional truck loading spaces that the applicant has stated customers can use to park and offload belongings. It should be noted that the Twin Forks facility is currently located in a relatively low travel location, whereas Home Sweet Home is located on the highest volume traffic area of town, which is Montauk Highway. Including the docks in the middle of the site, an additional 2 are located along the western side next to Georgia Drive and provide loading and unloading for the self-storage units. These loading docks on the western side currently operate close to the right-of-way of Georgia Drive, and the loading and unloading activity will likely necessitate parking in the street right-of-way. A combination of the neighboring gas station, which is to the left of it, where the legend is, and increased commercial activity of Home Sweet Home may cause potential conflicts in traffic flow. In addition, patrons may be inclined to temporarily park their vehicles on the side should the parking lot be at maximum capacity. Also, another mention is that there's a Wainscott commercial area pit above it as well, which uses Georgia Drive that goes up this way. The applicant has provided a letter from Key Civil Engineering detailing the average demand during peak hours on weekdays and weekends. It has stated that the average demand of a self-storage facility is 0.10 vehicles for every 1,000 square feet of gross floor area on weekdays, 0.10, and 0.09 vehicles for weekends based off of data within the Institute of Traffic Engineers Parking Generation Manual, 5th edition. Their table lists the proposed uses peak parking demand on weekdays to be 5.67 spaces and weekends to be 5.11 spaces. Given the site's location and seasonal peaks, additional parking may be needed. Full-time employees could also reduce the number of available spaces by 2 for a total of 5 spaces. The planning department is currently waiting to receive comments from Chief Fire Marshal David Brown regarding ADA accessibility of the proposed site plan. The planning department has also noted that 2 of the storage units on the first level floor plans will be inaccessible due to their positioning. And if we look at the first floor, the 2 units in question is this corner unit, which is a 10 by 15 unit that doesn't appear to have an obvious access way. And the other unit is located on the back of the building, which is a 9 by 11 unit, which also doesn't appear to have an obvious entranceway or accessway. So no existing or proposed sanitary plans have been submitted. for the application at the time of review, at the time of submission, I'm sorry. The enlarged building will increase the sanitary flow on the lot and will trigger the requirement for an upgraded sanitary system following with Chapter 210-3-2, subsection B, Part 5 of the Town Code. Given the age of the lot, it's highly likely that the sanitary system is not a low nitrogen septic system. It is noted that there is limited space in which to locate a new low nitrogen septic system. The applicant should provide existing and proposed sanitary waste flow calculations and depict an upgraded sanitary system. The applicant's revised landscaping plan keeps the majority of the existing landscaping, as the planning board has noted, to be mature junipers. It is revised to include bayberry, inkberry, and feather reed grass. This is landscaping and lighting plan. Along the front of the building facing Montauk Highway. The applicant has submitted in the lighting plan, including a key to the proposed fixtures that indicates that the lighting will be fully shielded and at the maximum of 3000 Kelvin. The planning department recommends that the applicant submits specification sheets from the manufacturer's website or a brochure to substantiate the specifications. The applicant's revised lighting plan has reduced the number of light fixtures. However, given the close proximity of the loading docks to Georgia Drive, there will be some light that spills over onto the road. The lighting plan shows that the light levels near the western loading docks will be 0.9 and 1.7 foot candles. Although it is lower than initially proposed, to zoom on the side, 1.7 and 0.9. Roughly. Chapter 255-1-83C of the Town Code provides that no light source shall be visible beyond the property line, including from roadways, and the board's lighting policy calls for 0.1 foot candles at the property line. The revised fixtures should also be depicted on the elevation drawings. The key to the lighting plan should be revised to include the method of control. Motion controls are the most consistent with the board's lighting policy. If timers or manual switches are proposed, the hours of operation should be indicated in the key, with lighting being shut off no later than 1 hour after the close of business. The proposed project will require the approval of the ARB, and the application should be submitted to this agency as soon as possible if the applicants have not already done so. The design has remained mostly unchanged. The following are proposed. 2-story tall window panes on the southwest corner. Sliding glass doors for western loading docks. These do not appear to be ADA accessible due to steps and a lack of detailing. Concrete sidewalk to be built within the easement surpassing the lot line of the property. Signage on the western side and on the front of the building facing Montauk Highway. A new stone base along the front, left and rear of the building. 2 elevator towers with a height of 25 feet and 5 inches and 36 feet and 6 inches. A trash area located in the rear, of which screening should be detailed on the site plan. So a certain list of plans that have been omitted in the original application submission should be submitted as part of the site plan review. Revised site plan of existing and proposed sanitary systems and drainage plan. Total number of units proposed for self-storage. In conclusion, based on the proposed use, location, and size of the lot, the project will need to address the multiple concerns mentioned above. Consideration should be given to revising the project to address the few number of parking spaces available, anticipated activity along Georgia Drive, and a great alteration to community character due to the proposed design.
Very thorough report, Marco. Thank you very much. The applicant, Mr. Matthews, you're there.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, we can.
Hey,
okay, good.
Sorry, before Brian starts, I just wanted to clarify something in here that as far as the parking, I understand self-storage is not defined in the town code. I think the board should look at similar uses in town and, for example, the Twin Forks site plan that's in here, and then other uses similar to self-storage. I don't think it's helpful to look at the town of Brookhaven and this town of Southampton's requirements. So I just wanted to clear that up before we get any further.
Yeah, this self-service is one of those areas that we've been grappling with for at least the time that I've been here, and it'd be nice to have a more viable set of standards. So thank you, Thomas, for that. Brian, Ms. Matthews,
Yes.
the floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian Matthews, Kirsten Cooley here on behalf of the applicant, Home Sweet Home. I believe we have with us as well, both on the phone, we have our engineer, Mark Pilata, I believe, and Joe Neitzel, one of our architects. So yeah, I thank you also, Marco, for a pretty thorough memo, and I thank the board for being here this late and hearing our application. So I'll get through things as quickly as I can, and then let the board get to its discussion and any questions they may have for us. The first thing I wanted to address, in no particular order in the memo, is the septic. We have those revised plans were just finished. I believe I got them sometime midday yesterday to show the existing septic and to show the proposed new septic, the IA nitrogen reducing system. So I wanted to give those a quick once over with the team and before we submitted them. So, we should be able to do that this week and have them in for you by the end of the week at the very latest, I would think. The next issue I wanted to address is the third story issue. In August, our office along with our architect met with the town's building inspector and the fire marshal to discuss this issue after it was raised in the initial memorandum. And in that discussion, both the as proposed and this current, what I guess we would call the mezzanine plan, were discussed. Neither of which did Ms. Glennon or David Brown have an issue with. Now, I don't want to speak for them too much, certainly, but she did mention that she would undertake to take a look at the town code to see if the proposal as initially done, that did have 3 stories in it, would be permitted in this commercial industrial zone in this existing building, because the roof line and the size of the building was not proposed to change. I know that they're particularly busy, so we've not. I don't know how much she's has had a chance to get into that. And we've not really heard back from her. We did follow up, and I know that she was still looking at it. Nevertheless, in the event that we have to or choose to, I guess, go with what's this mezzanine plan, I can state, and I believe that Joe can state as well, that Ms. Glennon expressed her agreement that this mezzanine would not constitute a separate, and so would not constitute a third story under the town code. Or under the New York State Building Code. And I'm sure, we'll have to get either the board or us, or some combination of the two, would have to get something from Ann saying that, but, that's where we are on this issue at the moment. We're still having those discussions that are ongoing. But that's the scope of the discussions we've had at that it appears that they are in agreement that this plan would not be violative of the number of stories that are permitted under the town code. The next issue I wanted to address is the parking. In the memo, it states that we're providing 6 spaces plus 1 handicap space for a total of, approximately 1 space for every 8,100 square feet. I would agree with Thomas that, I don't think we should look to Brookhaven or Southampton. I think you look to, how these uses are handled within this town's own borders. But I do note that, there are those 3 truck spaces that are provided for. And I know that they're provided for, one, because the town code requires them. But I think that if you look at the nature of this use, this is not your typical commercial use where there's going to be, trucks delivering goods and then separate customers going to purchase those goods. Here, it's the customers themselves that kind of bring their own goods to the property. So while the truck spaces are there, the idea, they're there just in case you have larger, deliveries, so to speak, or things being brought for self-storage. But I think those instances are going to be very few and far between. And the reality is that these 3 truck spaces are going to be available for parking. So I think the calculation in my mind comes closer to 10 spaces then, or 1 for every 5,600 square feet, which brings us to I believe a better ratio than the Twin Forks application.
Could I just interrupt and ask,
Yeah.
The truck spaces you're talking about, those are the ones on Georgia Drive next to the loading dock?
No, those are the ones in the center
In
of
that
the
open
building
space?
there.
Okay, very well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So I think the reality is that those are going to be used for parking. That the instances of large trucks coming in is probably, to call an exception probably makes it sound like it's going to happen more often than it actually will. But I will also note that the parking study does talk about, the number of spaces, both peak hours for weekends and weekdays, that we would exceed what the parking study recommends for the number of parking spaces that we would need. And then with respect to the lighting, I think in addition, we have those specification sheets, and we can get those in at the same time we resubmit these new plans for showing the upgraded septic. But on the lighting, I just wanted to address one thing. I know the policy about lighting off of your property, but I think in some circumstances, you have to look at the unique nature of this building and the nature of the area that it's in. This building is on the property line itself, and has been for quite some time. And in fact, some of it, there's the easement with the town, part of the loading docks, and even part of the building, I think, in little areas, is actually over the property line and into Georgia Drive. So you don't really have that, even though it may go onto the road, it's not so bright where the building meets setbacks and then it's still shining onto the road. But I also think you look at the neighborhood that we're in. You have, and Marco went through this, you have the pit behind you. You have a 24-hour gas station right next to you. We have, and we'll put in this too, the lights, these lights here, they'll be on motion sensors to address one of the questions raised by the planning department. So, particularly for these lights at that loading dock on the west side of the building, they're not going to get turned on unless you're, and I think I could let Mark speak to this, but my understanding, unless you're actually on that loading dock, they're not going to turn on. But, and I think, in that circumstance, and given the area that you're in, I think there'll be, if there's some spillover onto Georgia Road or Georgia Drive, I think that impact is going to be negligible, if at all, if anything. And those were the primary points that I just wanted to discuss. I don't know if Mark or Joe, you had anything that you wanted to particularly raise, or see if there were any questions from the board. But I think those were kind of the big ticket items I wanted to make sure that we address right away.
Hey, thank you very much.
Yep.
If your consultants don't have anything, then move over to Kathy. This is your application, Kathy.
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Brian, for that.
Yeah.
There's a lot here. I think that these open questions, we definitely need some kind of a determination in writing from the building inspector regarding her concept of this mezzanine or third story. It looks like a third story.
Certainly, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, it looks like
I agree with that. Yeah, I wouldn't expect you to just take my word for it. Sure.
Kathy, go. Kathy.
Yes, I'm just waiting for quiet. Looks like a third story to me, and if it is, then you've got to go back to the drawing board. You made reference to a parking study. I didn't see a parking study. Do you mean this traffic assessment that was submitted by Mr. of Key Civil Engineering, Brian?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I have some concerns with the just the size of this thing. And, you know, while I understand that there's a need for this and we are sort of free-forming it here because the code doesn't provide us with the requirements that we can generally use, the self-storage units that we've approved in the past, we've managed to work with the applicant to provide as much parking as possible because that access to the storage units is really the big issue. This site is in, you know, arguably the most heavily trafficked area of the entire township. And it's not inconsequential that Georgia Drive is the entryway to the Wayne-Scott Commercial Center, an application for which we are also reviewing site plan. So I would like to request that we hire a traffic consultant to do a coordinated review of the traffic impacts that this project and the Wayne-Scott Commercial Center, because they share the same roadway. And because this is on Montauk Highway in Wayne-Scott in a very heavily trafficked area, I don't think there's any possible way we can move forward on this without merging the traffic impacts of the neighboring property. So, and I am not, and our planning department is generally the first to say they are not the you know, traffic engineers. We need a traffic engineer to do this. I think, you know, folks in the area would look at that particular stretch of Wayne-Scott and even though the Department of Transportation and these, I forget what the acronym is for the transportation engineers that are referred to in sorry, I've got to flip to the page here. Mr. Pilata's memo, the ITE, I think, you know, I understand these standards make sense, but for parking comparisons and so forth, but I think, and that's useful, you know, for a, you know, a self-storage unit that's just someplace where it's not the most heavily trafficked roadway in our township. So I would like to request that we hire a transportation engineer to review this, give us some more practical information about how this use and the you know, the cumulative traffic impacts of this site with the Wayne-Scott Commercial Center. I don't see how we can possibly make a determination about this without integrating those needs with that of the neighboring property. That's, you know, that's a really big piece of this. And of course, the building inspector, you know, determining what this third story is. I'm just checking my notes here.
Kathy?
Yes.
On that issue with the building inspector, I think it's appropriate that the board make the request of the building inspector, the applicant.
Rather than the applicant. I agree.
I'll have a letter prepared and I'll send it to Ann.
Okay.
I think also we'd want to get Brian's position as well. If he can submit a letter to the file, you know, with what specifically he wants interpreted and why he feels, you know, the code entitles him to that interpretation for sending anything out to Ann.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, logistically, that's fine.
Yeah, I would. I appreciate that. I think we would like to do that. So when that request goes out, she has the ability to kind of look at it, you know, with all the pieces in front of her.
Right. You know, you put in your position, but the request will come from the board rather than from you.
Yeah, understood, sir. Understood.
Okay, cool. Good. Okay. Kathy, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Please go ahead.
No, I don't really have too much more to add. I just, I just think there's still too many unknowns here for us to comment too much more. And this, the traffic and the size of the building, particularly the height of it, is going to have an impact on the parking. If we can determine how big it can be, then we'll have a better sense of how much parking we should be able to provide, and the projected number of trips, in concert with this other application, has got to be determined before we can really go ahead. In my view, that's it.
Okay, I think we have to figure out exactly how we go about arranging for the traffic study for the board. I'm going to leave that to Thomas, if that's all right, to get the logistics of that. I presume that before we go around the table, there's nobody on the board who would object to Kathy's suggestion. I think it's a good one, particularly given this location and this application, that there be a board requested traffic expert. Does anybody have any problem with that?
I agree. But I would say that we want a traffic consultant to evaluate the impacts of this project. And as Kathy, taking into account Wayne-Scott Commercial, but not necessarily doing them together, right?
No. But whatever traffic study is done for this lot has to incorporate the potential of all the neighboring lots, really.
Yeah, not just this, because there's a gas station, right, as now, there's an incredibly busy gas station right next door. So,
yeah.
All right, I just want to make sure nobody has an objection, right, to the idea of a traffic study?
No.
Hearing none?
One thing I would add to that is I'm as concerned about the parking movements and making sure that part makes sense. So I don't know if it would be the same person, but maybe we could lump it into.
I agree with you. I think it's all of a piece. I mean,
I think so too, but I'm glad to segregate that, make sure that's underscored, because I think that's part of it, part of what we don't really know.
Right. I just don't know if the traffic consultant would also has that expertise, and we can just get it all together.
We'll see when we get the traffic consultant, but I think it's all, to my mind's eye, it's all of a piece. All right, let me go around the table again, starting with Sharon. Go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah, so I think those are all good points. And then, I think we need this determination on this third story and how big this building can actually be before we even embark on the traffic and the parking issues. So, we need to have that determination from Ann Glennon first, and then we can sort of, guide the traffic study. That's all I have.
That's a very good point. All right, Randy, do you have anything?
All I would say, I think Marco did a great job, and everybody's comments, but I wanted to highlight it looks to me like there's proposed loading and unloading on the west side on Georgia Drive. And Marco raised this, but I don't see how you can have cars or trucks. They're going to be parked on the street to load and unload from that side. And as Sam said, there's a lot of traffic going in and out of there for the gas station and then for the pit. And also people use that to get behind the business district. So I don't know. I would want to see if I don't see how you can have any loading and unloading on the west side of the building. I don't see how that works at all.
That's the way it exists today.
Yeah, I know that, but that doesn't mean it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, but again, we're also working within the confines of, what exists at the moment. If you were doing this as a blank slate, I think you design the building to be a little bit off the property line and not, a loading dock right along the boundary there. but nonetheless, it's what exists and it's what's there now and what we're working with.
Yeah, no, this is one of the problems with having mini storage as an, kind of uncategorized or unspecified facility in the town. I didn't mean to interrupt the flow of the conversation. Randy, do you have anything else?
Well, I also think that you're not, the applicant's not saying they're going to prohibit moving trucks from coming here and loading and unloading. So I think we have to assume that a moving company or moving trucks will come here and load and unload. I don't see how.
I mean, the moving and storage use is ceasing upon the conversion of this and that's in the narrative, upon the conversion, whatever you want to call it, the segue into the self-storage use.
Right, but there are people who don't want to, let's say an elderly person who has stuff going into storage. They're not going to drive down there and haul the stuff out of their car and all that. They're going to hire somebody to go down there and put their stuff in storage for them. I think both you and we have to expect that. At least unless you're going to say no trucks allowed, how can we just exclude consideration of that? Yeah, so I think that's it. I don't remember what we decided about the windows, but I don't think any. I think I don't know if we got ARB comments on that, but I'd like to see some alternatives to those windows. That's how I feel. That's it, Sam.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, the windows, we talked about that before. Okay, Kathy, you did the report. So Ian, you're up.
Yeah, I won't go into all of the details. I have a lot of the same concerns as the other board members. Certainly the third story we should figure out right away, because that, leads to everything else. And generally the size and the mass and the placement of this building, is a concern. I know there's a building there already, but you're here before site plan. So I do want to make sure that, we consider that. And one of my main issues is really the parking and the access. I do think it's a different thing when it's a company running a moving and storage and they're driving their own trucks and operating themselves, and then you invite the public in. And it just doesn't look like there's a lot of space up there to me. And I have a lot of questions about traffic flow, and there is no place to back up. I think Randy brought up a great point about Georgica Drive. I don't know how we can approve something that's designed to operate from off the property, even if that's what exists now. I mean, we'd be reapproving this, and I would certainly I would take a lot of convincing, for me to think that's a good idea. I also, someone can correct me if I'm wrong with the planning department or maybe the applicant. I thought that there was a variance or something to do with the parking in front at one point. And I don't know if this would revisit that or if I'm misremembering that entirely.
We can look into that, Randy. I'm not remembering it either, but we can.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought this was before the ZBA at some point having to do with the parking and in the front. I'm not sure, but I just don't know if this use change would, necessitate a revisit of that. So I have a lot of questions. I think the starting point is obviously with Ann Glennon. I just want to, make it clear to the applicant that this frankly seems like a big project that has a hard time fitting, with what you're trying to do here. But I'm, as always, open-minded to, see how it develops.
Okay. Lou, you're on.
I have nothing new. I'll just reiterate a lot of the, not a lot, but there are just a few items that my colleagues brought up as concerns. I have the same concerns. I would only add that besides, the 3 stories, which we'll find out if that's legal or not, and the traffic study, which I agree with. I think that the volume of visits is important to determine the parking requirement, but I also think it plays into the traffic study, because if there are, depending on how many cars and how often they would be arriving at the building, that's going to impact the kind of traffic you're going to have coming in and out of that location. That, you know, the side of the building, that's a big problem for me. I know it's been mentioned by others. I just don't see how that could work. It's a massive, intensive use on this restricted space. That's how I see it right now. But, you know, we've got a lot of work to do and a lot of questions to answer, and we'll see. We'll take it from there.
Hey, and Ed, thank you, Lou. Ed?
Yeah, I mean, just to make a few very quick comments. A lot has already been said, and I share the concerns that my colleagues have about the project. You know, I certainly understand why the owners of Home Sweet Home would want to convert this to self-storage. That's the way this industry is moving, obviously. But it does feel, as other people have said, an incredibly intense use of this piece of land. And if this were a blank slate, you probably wouldn't decide to put a 500 unit self-storage facility in this spot, but we're trying to convert, a building that covers, 90% of whatever it is, that gets lot line to lot line, into a facility that requires a very different kind of in and out than the sort of storage facility that it has been historically, and using, planning to use in part, public right of way to kind of get in and out just doesn't seem like a wise plan to me. It's an incredibly intense use. There's no doubt about that. The first thing is getting Ann's take on it for sure, but still a lot of work to do to sort of make this thing fit, which is really what we're trying to do here. And, I asked this question the last time that we discussed this project, and Randy brought it up as well. Are those windows on the southwest corner really still bother me? And I can't really see from the floor plan what's supposed to happen behind them, right? It looks to me from the floor plan like there are storage units in that spot. So anyway, just something to have a look at. I know the architect is on the line. Maybe you can address that question. But in any event, it sort of feels very sort of suburban and out of keeping with the character of that neighborhood.
And I can address that. Our thought with that was, right now it's a large warehouse type building. So our thought with the elevation was to, dress it up a bit, to add some glazing in front of it to eliminate the feel of the large warehouse. We're re-siding that front with like a cedar shake per se, with the stone base, and just to add some glazing in there. And behind that glazing, it's true glazing. You can see through it. And what's behind it is a false storage unit wall. So what you would have is, a storage unit partition with a false door behind it, right? So that you can just look into the space. It's not an opaque glass or anything. So it actually is a true window that allows light into the space. And, we can look at tweaking that, but my understanding is we do need to go in front of the ARB for that. I can talk with my client about that and see, but, that was kind of our perspective on it was, we were trying to help to alleviate the large mass of a building without any glazing to try to get it to fit more with the fabric of the area.
I appreciate that. And, and it really is an ARB concern. It's not ours, but I just wanted to raise that because it has sort of bothered me. So you're really talking about, 2 stories of glazing with storage units right behind that glass, essentially.
It's set back a few feet, so there's a small corridor in front of it. It's set back a few feet or so, and it just gives you the ability to have some depth to that front facade instead of just a large wall,
That's something that
to that would there be people walking in it, Or is it just like a is it like a model of what it looks like?
Correct. So it's a model. You would never see anybody loading boxes in there. You would never see those doors opened or, people's product piled up there. It's closed off. It's locked off from the area that the public is able to access. It's more for maintenance and cleaning the glass. So you would never have anything in there that looks, not in the character of the neighborhood. It would always be a clean approach behind there.
It's more of a marketing thing than anything else. I mean, every mini storage that I can think of, not everyone, but nearly every mini storage that I can think of has some variation on this, so that you can see what a unit looks like from the outside. And, but it's an ARB thing, at least at this stage of the game. Yeah. I just want to, Ed, did you have anything else that you wanted to?
No, that's
okay. Look, I know this parcel incredibly well. First of all, in the back and all around, we'll get to that point. It's going to have to be cleaned up. As far as using the truck bays as parking, the reason I asked the question before was because I want to make sure, and Randy brought it up first, that the biggest problem that I see right away is that this little stretch of Georgia Drive is, for a piece of roadway its size, maybe the single most traveled road in town, because everybody going in and out of the gas station, every truck going in and out of the pit, and everybody who wants to go and use Bathgate to get around the lineup at the traffic light goes on this street, and it's inevitable that as long as those loading dock, but as long as the loading dock is over there, eventually, and it's not going to take very long, it's going to be used for short-term parking or for people pulling in, and that has to be addressed. And I agree with, I think it was Ian or whomever it was who said that the parking has to be part of this conversation. Because just saying that you're going to use the loading docks or the truck bays, because I agree with you, frankly, that's what's going to happen. But you can look at the overhead, and you can see that it may work now as a moving company's loading bays, but or truck bays. But if you're going to have a busy in and out, and look, this facility is going to be at the front of the town. It's going to be in the beginning of town. I think that sooner or later you're going to have businesses that are going to go in, pick up what they need, and leave. Now, I know a lot of it is residential leaving things, but then you're going to have times of the year when you're going to have a lot of traffic, and other times of the year when you won't. But we're going to have council. We'll sit down with you and we'll figure out how to do this, getting our own traffic consultant and the scope of that consultancy. Ms. Matthews, send me the letter. I'll put together the board's request for the building inspector to give us an opinion on this mezzanine, and then we'll go from there. We have two questions on the consensus, but I think that, one is, right on point. The other one, I think, can wait because everything has to wait on this 2-story. Should the applicant revise the number of proposed stories to be 2 stories, which is the maximum allowed in the CI zone? That's been obviated by this, what we'll be doing. And the other question was, should the applicant submit sanitary plans and a drainage plan, including sanitary flows existing and proposed sanitary? But I think you can hold off on that just a little bit. No need to get, I don't think there's any need for you to get into that right now. You want to move this application along. I appreciate that. So let's get this business with what the mezzanine is or isn't out of the way. Do that first.
Agreed.
Excellent.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a point?
Please,
this is Eric Chance.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah. Exactly what you just said. The question of whether or not there is a 3rd story. that will affect the traffic calculations. And
Yeah, everything is going to flow from that.
yes,
absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah, that's why we're going to deal with that first.
Okay, I just wanted Brian to know that that will, affect the numbers that are going to be modified for the traffic study.
Yeah, certainly. It's going to impact your square footage, your parking, your sanitary flow. Everything's going to flow,
yes.
for lack of a better word from that.
That's
And
where we'll
so,
start.
yeah, I mean, it's the central issue. I think it's one thing we can all be in agreement on. So let's we'll turn around our letter to you, Mr. Chairman, as soon as possible.
Okay.
And then we'll go to the building inspector. It's like it's ultimately going to be her call.
Right, and then we'll we'll address, we'll come back and we'll address the many.
And we have that other information we can put into the file anyway, and but just to keep advancing it down the line a little bit.
Right.
I think that's the right approach. Everything else is gonna hinge upon what that determination is, and so let's go get it.
Yeah, I mean, logically speaking, the next thing we would do is we would get involved, assuming whatever the decision is by the building inspector. Then we'll talk about what the scope of the traffic consultancy will be. But one thing at a time.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all very much.
Wait, just one thing, Tim. I think it's important, Brian, for you and your clients to keep in mind that even if the building inspector says a third story is permitted, that doesn't mean we're going to find that site can accommodate that many storage units.
Good point.
I understand. No, I understand that. I didn't take that to mean that, she said a third story. So, we don't want to hear any more about it. Okay. It's just a matter of what you can seek and whether you need another level of review, variances, for example, if that was, if she found that it wasn't. So, no, I understand that, Randy.
Like what is the bottleneck? The bottleneck seems to be parking and access.
But we don't know how big that bottle is going to be just yet.
That's right. Okay.
Okay, very well. Okay, applicant, thank you very much for sticking around. Sorry you were at the end of the line, but somebody has
That's okay. That's okay. I appreciate you guys sticking around and doing this work very much. Thank you very much. And everybody stay well and have a good night.
Okay, you too.
Right.
Yep. Thank you.
And we have covered everything on our agenda because we had that little gap before the public hearing. So it now being, does anyone else have anything they want to add?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, we don't have we don't have a meeting next week. We have a meeting in 2 weeks. So bear that in mind. You have a free Wednesday. Was there a second on that motion to adjourn?
There was.
There was.
Like
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, everybody have a great couple of weeks.
Ready?
Aye.
Take care.